Welcome once again, everyone. We are free to speak. I'm Bobby and this is Paul. And every week we come to you and we talk about various issues and topics that have relevance both to Ugandan culture and to American culture.
You're introducing the topic today.
Well, I don't really see the hostility and the political divisiveness here in Uganda that I see in the U.S. There seems to be a much more positive spirit or much more positive environment. In the U.S., I'm always walking on eggshells with people and being afraid to tell people what I really think because it's going to create this toxic conversation. Like, for example, there was, I had a friend that wrote to me and was kind of surprised at some of the things that I was saying because he didn't know that I believe this way, on some of these things. But the reason was because I didn't necessarily feel comfortable telling him because in America, everything is so toxic. You have to walk on eggshells with people and you have to be very careful about what you say. And here in Uganda, I don't really feel like I have to do that, but that could also be because I'm an American.
No, even here, we yes, we have a political issue, divide, but per se, it's very low key because I can be I can support the opposition and my wife is NRM or pro-government and we can still live in peace. We meet, we go for parties, we have fun, we play games together. Politics is more of a part-time issue. It happens and and we have this animosity, but then even if people are it's more of a facade. People are not so divided on political lines.
They're not so divided along.
So in the moment of the topic or the discussion, the division comes out more blatantly, but then it doesn't carry on beyond that.
Right. No, in the U.S. it's definitely not that way because you oftentimes lose friends. There'll be divisions within families.
Isn't it just being used to intimidate people out of politics?
Yes.
To intimidate the so-called free speech.
And to not have a voice, to not express your views.
Yes, intimidating people out of free speech.
And it works. It's effective, and that's why they do it.
That's why it took long. That's why your friend got surprised, because you were intimidated out of free speech. Yeah. Before we proceed to the politics, I landed on some analogy or some explanation about work culture, and this person was explaining and thinking, okay, why does the United States care about Ugandans being gay or not? Probably not. Does it care about women in Uganda? Probably not. So the idea is, let's promote these things that don't matter to these Africans and engage their minds to be fighting these things that don't matter while we do the things that matter in the background. While we influence their trade, while we influence their politics, while we influence their things. So we are always fighting the work, gay people, those things that don't really matter, fighting feminism, and we're no longer focusing on the crust of the matter. Resources are being taken. People are taking now. Ugandans go to Dubai or whatever, to the Middle East, to work for 800,000 shilling. That's around $200 a month. And how do you go abroad, outside countries, overseas? You've traveled close to 5,000 miles to earn $200 a month, and they are treated like slaves, and they are molested, and bad things happen there. We can't talk about those things because we are. So for us, for them to cover our minds of what really is happening, they give us these stupid agendas. So we focus on them and don't focus on the things that actually matter. Could it be the case as well in the US?
Yeah, because I think a lot of times what's happening in the U.S., the voice of the common people is being ignored. So what's happening in America mainly benefits the rich and privileged in the United States. And so the voice of the average worker doesn't get heard. For example, we're going to send, so according to the American political agenda, we need to send billions of dollars to Ukraine, and we need to help Israel and put our money into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and so forth. So we put all our money into all these wars, but then we have billions of dollars that we just sent to other countries to support war, to support violence, to support death.
Yeah.
And it's not going to the people who are having a hard time making it from day to day.
For example, I was watching an interview by Trump. I think was it Dallas? I don't know where he had gone sometime this week. So this African American or black woman journalist the introductory, questions were really very extreme. She just said, "Oh, sir, Mr. Trump, sir, whatever." She didn't even say hi, how are you, good morning, whatever time it was. She just said, "Hi, Trump, how are you? But you said blacks are this." She just started accusing him. You discriminated against a black journalist. Then something about black. So she just took a woke perspective. They didn't talk about things that actually matter.
Right.
So it just went all woke, and so they're just trying to paint Trump as a very anti-black or etc. But then they didn't discuss anything essential to American people. Things that like fiscal policy, things like where actually the resources are being put in the wrong place or in the right place. She just came out with a woke agenda to try to defame Trump. And even when you listen to Kamala, how she's talking, she's just attacking him on woke lines.
Right.
They don't talk about other policies. They're just talking about woke. So is the world going to move around? Are we going to progress when you're only talking about gender, or only talking about color? I think we have bigger problems than just gender and color.
Right.
Something like that.
And here's how you know that the things that they're saying are false. Because they attack Trump. They say you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a sexist or a misogynist. But if you look at the media's reaction to Trump prior to him running for president, Trump was loved by the media. He was in movies, like he's in Home Alone 2. He would go on shows like Saturday Night Live. He had his own TV show.
He went WWE, like wrestling sometime, yeah.
He was famous, he was loved, and he was popular. But the moment that he ran for political office, and he did not jump on the agendas of the establishment who are protecting their own interests, and the moment that he promised to start listening to the people who don't have a voice, they turned on him and suddenly accused him of things like racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia. Wasn't he all these things before when you loved him and supported him?
Yeah, so basically, to be president of let's say, such an economy like the United States, what should be the parameters? What should be the prerequisites? Is it about competence? Or is it about color? Or is it about supporting particular narratives? Because if it's about competence, then let's have debates around competence. But then if the competence the competence scale is tilting let's say the direction of the Republican, then the other people will want to untilt it to their side, towards their side, by bringing things that don't matter. Color, he has a rude tone, things that are very inconsequential as to where the future of, let's say, America is going to. Let's talk about things that actually matter. Of course, everyone has their flaws. Kamala has her flaws. Biden has his flaws. No one talks about their flaws, that much, because anyways, maybe they're satisfying people's narratives.
Right.
But then this particular person, we don't hear any good that he has done, which is actually a lie. Obviously, he has done something good. There's a tweet, or I don't know whether it was a tweet by Kamala Harris recently. I think last week or this week, I forgot. But she was like, okay, when I become president, I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. So someone below in the comments said, she has forgotten that she has been the vice president. And someone reminded her she has been the vice president. You can't say when I become president when you've been in office for the last 4 years.
Yeah, and you got the second highest position of leadership in the country.
You've literally been the president, one or the other. Like, you've had influence, high-end influence. Actually, she was talking about the border issues, and I may not understand politics in the United States designations better, but someone implied that she was actually in charge of the border policy. And then she's saying, I'm going to do blah, blah, blah about the border. But then she was in charge of it and did nothing. So that, let's now test competence to that point. Let's not test competence because she's black and she's a woman. So while she attacks Trump, all these bad things, he can't attack her because, his attack is being racist by attacking her because she's black. Apparently she's black. Trump says she's not black, she just turned black overnight because she has always been an Indian. But then she's black now because it suits the narrative. It makes more sense to be black right now. And she's a woman, so you can't attack her because she's a woman.
Right, so they'll say that he's criticizing her because she's a person of color or a woman or both.
She's not a person of color anymore. She's a black. She's a black now. She's calling herself a black. Like, how is she a black? She's not.
Okay, because I didn't hear that she was calling herself.
She was calling
black.
herself black.
Was she? Okay, because I didn't hear. But so
It was trending sometime earlier this week. It was actually trending. She was calling herself black. But really?
So yeah, even though I try to keep up with what's going on in the U.S. because I'm in Uganda, I don't necessarily get as much as I did as when I was in the U.S. But also, I think I'm also trying to control how much I ingest because the environment over there is so toxic, and I can only take so much of that. Because before I came to Uganda, it all just overwhelmed me, just how toxic it was, and just not just the political environment, but just interacting with people, just always being afraid to say everything because you will lose friends in the U.S. if you. And I've lost several. And it's shocking to me every time it happens. That if people find out what I believe on a particular issue, suddenly they don't want to be friends with me. Suddenly they're calling me every horrible name in the book, and they don't want to even listen to what I'm saying. And I've had this happen so many times that I don't want to say anything anymore. And just to be out of that environment is refreshing, and I don't want to immerse myself in it any more than I have to. So I immerse myself in it enough so that I know what's going on, so we can have conversations like what we're having now. But I don't want to immerse myself in it so much that it brings me down, discourages me like it did when I was in the U.S., and takes away from maybe a much better positive experience I'm having with my wife here in Entebbe and so forth,
Yeah, but then there's something which has been very pertinent out there, underreported. It has been given little coverage, but then it's a big deal. Like a president of the United States, a former president of the United States, is shot at. An attempted assassination.
I wanted to talk about that next because that's what the toxic environment produces. It's going to lead to that because if you're constantly exposed to this lie that Trump is a Nazi, Trump is a fascist. If you think Trump is a fascist, you don't know what a fascist is. Look at Benito Mussolini. Go back to the mid-20th century if you want to know what fascism is. Trump is not a fascist. But when you tell people Trump is a Nazi, Trump is a fascist, and the person keeps hearing that over and over again, eventually it's going to be, hey, it's not wrong to kill a Nazi. It's not wrong to kill a fascist. Boom, attempted, assassination.
Exactly.
It's a toxic environment leads to this.
Yeah, that it's not making news anymore. It's just embarrassing for someone who has been at the highest office in the world currently.
Yeah.
If this assassination attempt happened for Obama, I think it would still be
yes, it would be
sailing right now.
And the media would be promoting it as it's the hatred being caused by the Trump supporters,
exactly.
by the Nazis and the fascists that are Trump supporters. But you don't hear anything about, the toxic environment of those that are in the woke crowd, or what I like to say is for those who have Trump derangement syndrome, which I know is not a real thing. But how can you be so obsessed with somebody that you just, I don't know, I just don't understand.
I like your animation. You're being animated.
Yeah, I'm getting into it. But
I get a point.
But this is why I don't want to expose myself to this so much. Is because I do get really intense with it because it's just so overwhelming, and you just want things to be different, and I become passionate about wanting things to be different, and they're not different.
Now the problem with I'm in Uganda, so I don't know much. I know just a little bit. But the problem with people who are, let's say, supporting Democrats, they are supporting Democrats regardless.
Yes.
No matter, even if they got polled from Uganda and I stood as president of the United States as a Democrat, I'll still get a very substantial amount of votes because I'm a Democrat. But then, many a time,
because the whole point is to defeat Trump.
They just want to defeat Trump, regardless of who is standing against
Even
him.
though you have Democrats, like why won't Democrats support Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who would actually be a perfect anti-establishment candidate who subscribes to generally the Democratic platform values of he generally subscribes to the platforms of the Democratic Party. But the reason why they won't support him is because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is like Donald Trump in that he doesn't conform to the narratives and he challenges the establishment narratives. Like, for example, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dared challenge the whole narrative around COVID and the COVID vaccines. He dared to challenge it, and you can't do that within the establishment.
Exactly.
And even though he subscribes to the values of the Democratic, he subscribes to all the things most of the things that are on the Democratic platform, they're going to demonize him as a conspiracy theorist, just like they demonize Trump, because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. won't jump on the narratives that the privileged and rich in America want him to to jump on. That's why they hate Trump too. So if you think that I'm just promoting Trump, I'm not, because I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. But I'm saying that Trump is at least challenging the narratives on the right, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is challenging the narratives on the left, and I will support anyone who's willing to challenge these narratives.